A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away,
Star Wars, The Adventures of Lannery Brock, Jedi Ranger, A Dawn of the Jedi Tale, by Tim Levin, 2013. Originally published in the Kindle Daily Post, the short story delves into Lannery's preparation for her most important mission yet. Created and read by The Archivist Publishing.
Not every journeyer will complete their great journey. Some will fall victim to Tython's many dangerous landscapes or creatures. Some will lose themselves. Some may even lose their way in the Force and leave Tython far behind, scattering out to the system, lost in a much more fundamental way. But as Jedi, we must accept this, because this is not an existence of absolutes. Life is a challenge, and facing that challenge is what makes the good great.
Master Dila Jan Morola, 3533 TYA, Though Your Arrival. The words of Master Morola echoed through Lannery's mind again. They had done so since spoken at her brother's, Dalian Brock's, funeral 9 years earlier, and had been repeated multiple times to her by her mother in vain attempts to console her and diminish her guilt. She and her brother had undertaken their great journey together, during which she had been charged with watching over him and protecting him, a charge in which she had ultimately failed. She mused briefly that it would have been more comforting to have another of the revered master's quotations read during her brother's funeral, one in which Master Morola had cautioned that Tython's age was deep, and that the Jedi were merely passing through, as their true home was the Force. The ship shuddered with its efforts to tear itself from Tython's pull, and she wondered why leaving did not trouble her equally. She'd spent 4 years believing it was because she was a wanderer, a seeker of knowledge and enlightenment, and the farther she went, the more she knew. A large part of that was true. Her passion in the Force made it so. But she also suspected that in ranging beyond Tython, she had left behind the lingering guilt that Dale's death had been her fault. Where could such feelings reside now? Assuming the question was directed at him, Ironholgs gave a lengthy, raspy response. Smiling to herself, she withdrew the message pod from her pocket and slipped it into the ship's computer. The flat screen snowed, and then a picture faded in from the darkness. Master Dan Powell's face, though this time she seemed more tense than before.
Lannery, I'll be brief. By the time you view this message, you will have stood before me and other Jedi Masters and been given a mission. What I offer you now, privately, the reason for which I'm sure you will understand, is help. Your ship's computer now contains all we know of your errant brother and his intentions, though, as you will see, that's precious little. A rumor, a warning, a few words of worry from our rangers and spies out in the system. On Calamar, you should proceed to the city-state of Rahul Yon, where you will meet a Twi'lek called Trisona in Sesko's Tavern. He lives close by. Just ask the tavern's owner. Tree will tell you more. He's not a Jedi. Indeed, many of his interests are on Shikokwa, and on any other occasion you might seek to arrest him rather than take his advice. But he served me well several times before. Greed drives him, and I pay.
She sighed and looked for a moment incredibly sad.
I hate to go behind the backs of the other Jedi Masters in this, because no one on the Council wanted a non-Jedi involved. But I justify doing so in the knowledge that it will help. You'll know more than most that some on the settled worlds don't trust the Jedi, even though perhaps they hold us in awe. Some actively dislike us. A few harbor hate, still nurtured and fresh following the Despot War 12 years ago. And I suspect it is these levels of society where your investigation will take you. Tree might help you past this mistrust. He knows those levels. But be wary of him. Stay alert. He has his own interests at heart, and only that. He's as dangerous as, well...
Dan Powell smiled.
Almost as dangerous as you.
She touched the corner of her mouth with one finger, a habit Lannery knew well. The master from Anil Kesh was thinking.
I hope your studies go well. I hope you're still learning. I've never seen such potential in anyone. Go well, Lannery Brock, and may the Force go with you.
The message ended and the screen faded to black. The computer ejected the message pod, but Lannery sat for a while in the cockpit, seat turned away from the windows and the amazing views beyond. A shadow momentarily clouded Lannery's face. Not due to Master Dan Powell's guidance to work with the criminal Tree Sana, or due to her comments regarding the inherent danger in working closely with such a being. Lannery Brock was a highly skilled Jedi Ranger and was highly confident in her abilities. Even more so, she was confident in the Force. It was this level of secrecy that concerned her. She had known Master Dan Powell half of her life and had never known her to be misleading or keep secrets. Now she was asking Lannery to involve this untrustworthy criminal in this mission. The most important mission of her life, and likely for the Tython system itself. Memories of her trials with the Wookiee warlord, Garcana, on Ska Gora, and the guilt she held over being responsible for so many unnecessary deaths still haunted her. And on that mission, she had been given all of the facts up front. There was no secrecy and no subterfuge. Or was it really the knowledge that her brother Dale was still alive after all of these years? And she was being sent to stop what appeared to be his nefarious scheme. For a brief moment, doubt insinuated itself into her mind before she took a long, slow breath and quickly drew deeper into the embrace of the Force. Again fully in balance, knowledge of what she must do became clear, and the confidence to do it flooded through her, along with the Force. If Master Dan Powell suggested she work with Tree Sana on this mission, and it increased the chance of a successful outcome, she would trust in her Master's wisdom and the will of the Force. Her resolve now set firmly, Lannery announced, "Calamar it is, then." The droid Ironholgs wheezed and rasped agreeably, but to no one in particular. Over 4 years spent mostly alone, the habit of talking to herself, or Ironholgs, which was almost the same, had grown. But I don't like the idea of a partner. She liked her own company. Sometimes she spoke to the second empty cockpit seat beside her, though it had never been occupied. She swiveled the pilot's seat and looked to the stars. There was already much to absorb and muse upon, and she had the time it would take to reach Calamar to do so. All these secrets being entrusted to her should have made her feel honored. But instead, she was unsettled. There was so much she still didn't know. After running through standard checks to ensure that her peacemaker was not being tracked or followed at a distance, being alone was more than habit, she turned to the flat screen once again. So let's see what all the masters wanted me to know. She lifted a keyboard onto her lap, tapped in some commands, and started to view the information that had been loaded into the ship's computer. Even though she had been away from home for 4 years, Lannery still kept to Tython time. She was used to it. It suited her natural sleep patterns, and she saw little point in adapting her ship to standard time. In her less guarded moments, she might also admit that it reminded her of home. The computer calculated the optimum flight path from Tython to Kalamar for the time of year and current planet alignments. And before committing to the route, Lannery also calculated it manually. The computer was never wrong in such matters. The navigational elements were programmed and designed by the Jedi's most experienced space travelers. But she was always pleased when her calculations came out the same. Rather than questioning the computer, she was testing herself. Pushing her peacemaker to its limits, it took a little over 7 days to reach Kalamar. She used this time to meditate, prepare herself for the coming mission, exercise, and review every aspect of the information downloaded to the peacemaker's computers. There wasn't much. Whatever contacts had informed the Jedi of Dale's scheme had not been very thorough. Rumors, speculation, and a few hazy images. But even in those grainy images of covert meetings and mysterious exchanges, she recognized the face of her brother. He looked older, of course, but she was surprised at how much older, as if he'd lived 3 lifetimes since she had last seen him, not 9 years. He was taller, thinner. His child's sadness translated into adult bitterness. His dusky skin had turned darker and more rugged. And there was something haunting about his blurred visage. Lannery berated herself for letting her thoughts of his death cloud how she viewed him now. Yet the idea remained. Seeing those images of Dale felt like looking at a ghost. "We'll meet again," she said to the screen, "and I'll ask why you let me think you were dead all these years." For the first few days of the journey, she left Dale's image on the cockpit flat screen, also feeding it through to a screen in the living quarters directly behind the cockpit. A reminder of who she sought and who she had lost. But seeing him there only confused her more, so by day 5 she left the screen blank. Lannery Brock had spent most of the last 2 days facing the large viewport and its unending glorious view of the stars, when without warning, she rose quickly from her Jedi meditation position and faced Ironholgs. "Ironholgs, enter this in my journal," she said to the droid. Obediently, the amalgamation of dented and scarred metal came to life, turned its head towards the Jedi Ranger, and acknowledged with what sounded like a series of strained beeps and wheezes. "That's a good droid," she said. "Okay, where to begin?" Since the Desane mining mission on Zarist with Hawk Ryo, little more than 1 week ago, so much had happened. Her meeting with the Jedi Council, the unexpected news that they had shared with her, in confidence, her subsequent conversations with Jedi Master Dam Powell, and then the additional, and even more secret, message from Master Powell, which she had been told to view privately only once she was aboard her ship. And most recently, the contents of the file the Jedi Council kept on her brother. The Jedi Council had a file on her brother, and he was alive. Finding it difficult to maintain balance in the Force, Lannery had done as she had been taught. Taking advantage of the solitude of her ship, she meditated on the recent events until she could put all of this new information into perspective, organize her next steps, and most importantly, remain in balance. Now, using her ship's log, she would summarize her musings and plan her path forward. Her droid, Ironholgs, beeped and whistled again, expectantly. Lannery continued aloud so that Ironholgs could transcribe her plan into the ship's log. "So, the Jedi Council asked me back to Tython, which meant only one thing. They had a mission for me. I'm a ranger, it's to be expected. Although the last time they did this, I ended up flying out to Ska Gora and getting involved in the Wookiee land wars," she said. Lannery paused for a moment as she recalled the potential and missed opportunities and subsequent horrors of that mission a few years earlier. The conflict had occurred on the planet Ska Gora around 25,795 BBY, when the Wookiee warlord Karkana had led many of his species from the floating city ships above the planet's surface to settle in the forests on the surface of Ska Agora, ignoring the fact that doing so was illegal and in flagrant violation to multiple treaties that had been in place for generations. The Jedi Council had responded by dispatching Jedi Ranger Lannery Brock to Ska Agora to settle the matter. Ranger Brock had tried, through diplomatic means, to convince Garcana to leave multiple times. In the end, when diplomacy had failed and the Wookiees had severed all communications, the Ranger was forced to turn her laser cannons on the Wookiees in order to prevent a civil war from breaking out between the Wookiees and those who still lived on the floating city ships above Ska Agora's surface. In her Peacemaker-class cruiser, she was forced to bombard the planet's surface where the Wookiees lived, killing all of the illegal settlers. Lannery was still haunted by her actions on Ska Agora, and regretted how Garcana had stubbornly refused to back down and forced her hand. To Ironholgs, she added with a grimace, "I thought that was going to be a breeze." It ended messily. After a moment, she said, "But this was different, so very different. The way I see it, there are two reasons they called me back." Ironholgs beeped, groaned, and whistled once again as she continued. "The first is that the mission is so serious, so delicate, and potentially so deadly that they couldn't risk any form of communication to fill me in. They couldn't transmit the information, even on the Jedi's own secured channels. They couldn't send anyone, a droid or a ranger, and with encrypted files. Our meeting had to be face-to-face." Lannery paused for a moment before adding, "And when I met them in the valley, even that meeting was done in extreme secrecy. Strange to see the council like that, almost as if they were scared." In response to her last comment, Ironholgs launched into a prolonged series of strained beeps, groans, and whistles. The Ranger could not help but smile briefly. She had traveled together with this amalgamation of scratched and worn parts for so many years that the droid had become her protector at times, as well as her confidant and friend. Lannery continued once more. "The second reason they chose me is just how personal this mission is to me. At first, I thought the latter might compromise the former, but I've had time to let it sink in." Her brother, Dalian Brock, or Dale, as he was known to his family, was also Force-sensitive, but had only reluctantly trained as a Jedi journeyer due to pressure from his parents and Lannery. He believed that the Jedi could not be their own masters, since they served the Force and were bound by it. His belief caused him to eventually begin to shun the Force, even reacting furiously whenever his sister sought to connect with his mind telepathically. As a child, every time his family had visited the Edge Forest to bask in the Force energies of the teeming lives around them, the young Dalen would burst into tears due to his family's indifference towards his feelings and constant efforts to bring him to embrace the Force. Over time, he instead turned to history, studying the ancient cultures of Tython and pondering the stars. Their mother had found this concerning and worried that it would lead him to a destiny away from Tython. Later, when Lannery and Dale had set out on their great journey, the schism in their beliefs widened, first as a response to their shared trials during their journey, and culminating when he was unable to hear Master Turkay in the Force. Dale had even gone as far as to kick sand into the kind Master Turkay's face during one lesson. Not much later, Dale had done the unthinkable. He had killed fellow journeyer Scott Yoon, and then fled from the Jedi Temple. To his family's horror, Dale had died in the Old City during his attempt to escape. Or so everyone had thought until now. And now her brother, Dale, was discovered to be alive and at the center of a mysterious cabal in possession of a doomsday weapon, which threatened to unravel the very fabric of the Tython system. I've had time to dwell on the past, those early years on Tython with my dear brother Dale, and the later years without him. And I can see why the Jedi Council are considered so wise. With a sigh, Lannery added, "The danger of the mission and its personal aspect are so intertwined that they couldn't choose anyone else. It's me. It always had to be me. They say a Jedi's training is what makes them the person they are, and in some respects that's true. My journey across Tython shaped me. I found my true calling at Anil Kesh, the Jedi Temple of Science. There I learned to temper my doubts and channel my talents. There I first discovered the alchemy of flesh." Ironholgs added what Lannery thought was a supportive string of strained beeps and whistles. Reflecting for a moment, she said with pride, "But it was I who made that long, ultimately tragic journey that really formed the person I am now." After a pause, the Jedi Ranger said, "So now I'm embarking on my new mission. My first stop will be Kalimar. I've been told to meet a Twi'lek called Tree-Sana there. I'm told he will help me. And yes, already I'm unsettled. I'm used to dealing with non-Tythons, but for a mission as sensitive as this, why is there something a Twi'lek can tell me that the Council cannot?" Worry clouded her face briefly, although any concerns were quickly broken up by another string of pinched sounds from her droid companion. "Not the best way to start a mission, eh, Ironholgs? In mystery, in darkness," she said. After a short time spent staring out into the vast expanse of space through the viewport, Lannery added, "Nevertheless, I returned to Tython with peace of mind, and now I'm leaving again with a great weight bearing down on me. A personal pressure the likes of which I never thought I'd have to face. And such a potential danger for the whole Tython system." She paused, and then in a voice barely above a whisper, the Ranger said, "I feel that I'm about to test every moment of training I've ever undertaken." Ironholgs added another series of whines and whistles in support. "But that's fine, Ironholgs. I'll have you with me, grumpy droid that you are. I have my Peacemaker ship, refined and customized to my liking, with a faster engine and much bigger guns," Lannery said with a smile. "And I have the Force. Whatever happens, whatever I'm about to face, and whoever I might meet, the Force is always there." After a moment, she ended her ship's mission log with, "Set course for Kalimar, and may the Force go with me. Jedi Ranger Lannery Brock, signing off." Later, when she had settled into her chair and absently gazed at the star lines flying past the viewports, Lannery Brock couldn't help but remember what seemed to be the only Jedi lesson that Dale had retained, and often repeated, much to her chagrin.
Never place all your reliance in the Force. It's always there, but that does not mean it can always be called upon. Each Jedi is his own person with his own talents. Learn to use them. Nurture them. If the Force is the dream, you are the dreamer, and sometimes you have to wake up. Sometimes you are all you have. Master Shalmar, A Life in Balance, 7523 TYA.
This unabridged audiobook was developed 100% using artificial intelligence to generate realistic and familiar voices.